This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with my buddy, my pal, my coffee drinking buddy, my grief counselor. What else do you want to call you, Jared?
Man, I don't know. I'm going to start charging you for some of these. That's the grief counseling. Of course, you're having to reciprocate that, so I guess it's even, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I guess we kind of come out even, so I don't have to pay you for the other services.
We both keep each other level-headed at when we want to go real crazy about Auburn football.
That is so true. It's kind of one of those things where, I feel like there have been moments where we're both in line where it's like, oh, this is the worst game ever, and there's no coming back from this. And we're both at that, but I feel like it's super rare. Usually it's like, oh, I can find something, and Jared's mad, or it's literally the reverse, and Jared's like, there's still hope.
To be fair, people, I'm usually the more doomsday end of the world. AJ's the more level-headed. So.
Maybe. Sometimes. If you listen to our last two reviews of games, I think both of us have been pretty doomsday.
That's normal for me, though. You're just joining the crowd.
I guess I am. I'm coming to the peer pressure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Misery loves company.
Yeah, and that it did almost start. Well, I guess if you even date back, it did start. You said misery. It reminded me of Missouri, like the game. That was almost misery.
Hey, that's a Power 5 win for Auburn. We can't forget about that one.
That's right. Yeah, it's a win, right?
That's a big one. That was probably that's probably some banners probably hanging in the locker room over that one.
Oh man, if we have our standards that low, goodness, we got a problem bigger than what even I feel like Carson could handle. But let's talk about this Ole Miss game. Auburn lost to Ole Miss 48-34. At the beginning, we were down 21-0. And at that point, I was like, man, this team is about to lose so harsh and so badly. We did battle back a little bit, but I feel like we just never were able to recover from that lead that Ole Miss got up on us real quickly. And I feel like at times we even had chances to tie it or even maybe potentially get the lead, and just never came to fruition. And there's lots of different factors that kind of came into that. But, again, Auburn loses. And this is another tough, another loss. It's another tough loss. And I'm still trying to, stomach how, losing to Ole Miss, kind of, goes on us. Because what has it been since, 2015 since we've lost to Ole Miss? So, I mean, we've ultimately really done well against Ole Miss. Now, this year's Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin has been a lot better. But, that's just always, I kind of expect when I play Ole Miss. I think we can beat them. And we didn't. Jared, what's kind of your thoughts on this game and what you saw on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it brought a little bit of hope from the offensive side. I mean, it's kind of like your golf game, right? Or my golf game. You go out there one day and your drive's working, but you can't putt. Well, we had one working for several weeks and couldn't do the other.
Right.
And then we go out there and we go ahead.
Yeah, like our defense. Yeah, I think that's what you're referring
terrible.
to.
Yeah, it was terrible. If the defense that we had seen minus the Penn State, even the Georgia game, I think they got gassed in the Georgia game. If the defense, even in the Georgia game, shows up at Ole Miss, we probably win. Offense showed up, and so you can't blame any of you can't say they were gassed or this or that. First quarter was bad, but after that, the offense gave them enthusiasm that was needed. They gave them some drives. They gave them rest. I think and there's no doubt we still had plenty of other chances to win that game, but I think the one of the worst pass interference calls I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, dude!
Probably played a factor in that game because we had all the momentum.
Yeah,
we had just stopped them. Technically, we stopped them, and then that pass interference call. So that was a huge play.
Yeah,
and then Lane Kiffin doing the onside kick, and that again goes back to being outcoached. I mean, it just happens every game. I'm like, I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing. Like I feel like this team has played hard. They're still. I mean, obviously, like we're scoring, which hey, we haven't done this in a while. Is consistently scoring in the second half, and we scored 17 points in the second half. To me, that's a move in the right direction. But is that is that enough? Like at the end of the day, a football coach is pretty much their destiny, the way that they're going is determined by how many wins you get. Their legacy is how many wins you had. And right now that record is not looking too hot. Harson's got a losing record at Auburn in the last 12 games. He's only won 3 of those, and 2 of those were cupcakes. And the one that we did win against Missouri, like we mentioned, it was given to us multiple times. And so it's like, is that enough? I mean, do you think for me, I'm trying to find an argument. Everybody's saying fire Harsin, fire Harsin, fire Harsin. Is there any kind of argument that you can think of that's enough to say at this point we should keep Harsin another year?
Oh, another year? No. I thought you were going to say till the end of the year.
Nah.
No, I see nothing for another year.
I mean even the end of the year. Is that is there enough?
No, I think I'm on record saying that I think he I hate to say it. I think his either, and he's not purposely doing this. Some people are like, I wouldn't be a good doctor, right? But he's out of his league is the point of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's purposely being bad. He's just not, he's over his head.
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting out coached in every single game he plays. He got out coached in the Missouri game. Their coach was calling the right play, putting him in the right spot. Their players were just like, no, we don't want it.
Yeah.
So, case in point, Ole Miss, we basically did well because we have athletes. Ole Miss, we were better. We have more athletes than Ole Miss. Their guys were just open because Lane was designing plays to get them open.
Mm-hmm.
So that was coaching.
Yep.
Their quarterback had over 100 yards rushing. Their quarterback, Lane, and I saw it plain as day. It was a third down, I think 3rd and 15. Lane calls a beautiful QB draw, like drop back and then the QB just runs right up the middle, wide open. We don't even do that stuff with a quarterback that's way more athletic. We just don't. Robbie, when he makes stuff happen, I feel like he's doing it on his own.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's designed. And I'll be honest with you, man, that game probably gets way out of hand if Robbie doesn't hit that lob pass to Coy Moore. That started our offensive streak.
Absolutely.
And that was not designed.
Yep.
That was just Robbie making a play. And then once that happened, for whatever reason, it clicked. I don't know. I feel like we're succeeding when we have success, period. I don't feel like it's because of scheme. I feel like it's because the players are making plays. Having said that, the screen pass that got intercepted to Tank was a beautiful play call. I feel like Tank would have scored a touchdown on that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great time to call it.
Yeah.
And that was players not executing.
Right.
So they do deserve credit. I feel like they called that at the right time, but they never went back to it. But so
yeah,
I guess to answer your question, I've seen enough to where I think if somebody is just very vanilla and understands football, would give your team a better chance of winning some games down the road. Because I just think Harsin is just not. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get the in-game decisions.
Yeah. Well, I keep coming back to yeah, he was successful at Boise State. But how many games was he in this situation? I don't think there were many. I mean, his winning record, he would beat teams pretty well. And it wasn't like it was, back and forth, or he'd be down 14, 21 points and have to, motivate his team to come back and win. And that's a different kind of coaching. You call the game differently when you're in those situations. And everybody in the SEC, every coach knows it, that you have to have the best, you have to play your best game that day. And if you don't, that's when the upsets are going to happen and your team's going to lose. And the same thing for coaching. If you aren't having your best day at coaching and you call some bad plays, some stuff's just not going to go your way. So
I've seen enough over the years. I don't think Kirby and Saban are fantastic in-game coaches. I've seen them make enough mistakes in close games. They just have better talent. And now they've built that up. They are super well coached throughout the week. Like, they know their scheme and everything. But I've
Yep.
seen them make some boneheaded in-game decisions. Kirby made them early on at Georgia. Cost him a couple of games. But they have more talent. And at Auburn, right now, you're going to have a good coach who can scheme up stuff. That's what Gus did when he came in. Lane right now is scheming Ole Miss players open.
Right.
They are not more talented than Auburn. I don't, anybody that talks about Auburn can't compete with other teams, I'm like, well, Ole Miss has less talent than Auburn, and they're competing.
And we were competing, and I'll give them that. I think to compete against a number 9 team, I think that says something. Like, we have the talent to be there. And I keep going back to this coaching conversation of, like, should we give Harsin more time? And you look at a couple of coaches that are in the SEC that are pretty new. Lane Kiffin's only been in Ole Miss, I think this is 3rd season, and look at him. He's put together 10+ win season at a place at Ole Miss who has never done that before, and now they're 7-0, and that's pretty crazy to me. Again, that's all, like, to me, that is coaching. Because you could have, Ole Miss could have stuck with just your average Joe, regular quarterback, it would have been, or coach, not quarterback. And, that would have been fine. They would have probably won 6-7 games a year, maybe 8. And now they've got a good coach, if not a great coach. And look how much that's, helping them. You kind of also look at another coach, Heupel at Tennessee. Right after Jeremy Pruitt got fired, 37 players from Tennessee left. 37. Auburn had, 20? That was pretty bad, right? In the last year, transferring out. But think of, that's like, over a third of your team is leaving your team. And so look at what Heupel's done in the last couple of years. Tennessee is now beating Bama. And again, that's on coaching. And now I'm not asking, I don't want to be completely irrational here and say, I think we should, just fire Harsin immediately and hope we get one of those home run coaches. But I think it just shows the point that coaching is so key, especially in college football. And that's where I'm kind of getting at it. I don't think we need to go get either one of them. It's more of just coaching is such a key thing.
Yeah, coaching is coaching can equal the playing field without a doubt. And for everybody, there's a lot of panic out there. And to be honest with you, it's always possible. I'm scared that, hey, what if we never get this thing turned around? Listen, Tennessee was in a worse. Now we could keep trending, but Tennessee had been down for a very long time. And they had just fired another coach, and they lost, like you mentioned, they lost a ton of players. And 2 years later, they're beating Alabama. Arkansas was bad. Arkansas couldn't win SEC games. Wasn't even competitive. And they bring in a guy who really wasn't even a guy a lot of people would have hired. And I know they're not as hot this year. They've faltered a little bit, but they got that turned around pretty quick at Arkansas with the right coach and the right staff. That's all it takes. So if you're panicking, now we could get the hire wrong if we move on from Harsin, but just keep in mind that really, if you get it right, you're right back in the thick of things.
Right. So, again, I think both you and I have been simply just asking, can we see improvement? I think we saw some improvement. Is that some improvement even in this game enough to sway me from saying we should fire Harsin to let's give him more of a chance? Now, if somehow Harsin comes out, and this is completely not going to happen, but what if he does come out and finish out the rest of the season and wins most of the games remaining? What if that does happen? That would be super hard, I feel like, for somebody to fire them. But I don't see that necessarily happening. And again, it comes back to the coaching. I don't know if the coaching is up to standard of what the SEC, the way the coaches, you have to coach in the SEC.
If he wins every game but Bama and is competitive against Bama and has recruiting in the top 15, you keep him. To me, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
He has to win. He has to beat Arkansas at home, Mississippi State on the road, Western Kentucky at home, A&M at home, and be competitive against Bama.
Right.
If he somehow does that and can get recruiting by National Signing Day in the top 15, I think you'd be silly to fire him at that point because you've seen improvement and you got recruits coming in.
Right. Well, and one thing, I mean, we keep hearing, Harsin say, hey, we're that close. We're just that close to like getting there. I saw a little bit of a glimpse of hope of that with our run game, in particular this game, because our run game has been more or less non-existent this season. And I saw hope. Now, is that Ole Miss just not having a good run defense? Maybe. But at least it showed me, even with a completely hodgepodge of an offensive line with a lot of injuries going on there, we were still able to run.
But AJ, I mean, I'm positive with you on this. I mean, we've played teams that didn't have good run defenses and we couldn't move it. So I think they did figure. I know you said was that Ole Miss not? And Missouri was like worse than the league or something.
Yep.
And we couldn't move it. So I feel like they did figure something out with that. And and here's the thing. We have not done well. We may have figured something out. Will Arkansas adjust to that? Can we adjust back? You know what I'm saying? Can we counter with adjustment? We'll see. But it was so refreshing to see Tank be what Tank can be.
Right. I'd just gotten so, I hate to say the word complacent, but like that was, he was getting 40, 50, maybe even 60 yards a game. And I was like, that's not Tank.
He got that in one carry. Yeah.
I know, right?
One carry. It was amazing. It was like, oh, okay. And then, Quez did his usual, had a big play. They had Damari Austin, had a couple of end arounds. He looked good.
Yep.
I think, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a fan right now. I think we got to move on. But yeah, if he for somehow, and the crazy thing is, it's not impossible.
Right.
Arkansas is not playing well. It's at home. Western Kentucky, you should beat. A&M's not playing well. It's at home. Really, if you can figure this thing out, you got to beat Mississippi State on the road, and that's not easy.
No, I mean,
but you still got to be competitive against Alabama. In my scenario, you can't go out there and get blown out. In my mind.
No, I think that's the only way. And then again, kind of the early signing day, getting your guys.
Recruiting up. Yep, you got to get recruiting up.
So,
but it would be almost impossible for him to get in the top 15. That's why I don't think this happens. But I do think he could get back to 20 if he goes on that type of run. Offense is looking competent. You're going to start having some other people signing. Okay, I see it. All right, I'm going to sign. Let's say this real quick. I don't know if we're only playing true freshmen. That's all I see making plays now. But, man, that Amari Kelly has yet to miss a slant over the middle.
Yeah.
We need to see more of that. Jay Fair, he was covered. That was a tough play. He made a catch. I think that was his first of the year. We need to see more Camden Brown, but Amari Kelly, he's looking good, man.
Yeah, the wide receivers, even in the little spurts, and these are mostly the young guys. I mean, again, it's kind of weird. Freshmen. Like, yeah, these are young, 18, 19-year-olds making these plays. And I'm like, where the heck has Shedrick Jackson been? I think he got targeted once, maybe this game. And like the senior leadership from the wide receivers, I feel like just hasn't necessarily been there like it has in years past. Even Javarius Johnson, they probably put some really good defenders on him since he's such a deep ball threat for us. But I mean, he only had 2 catches for 10 yards the whole game, and that's not something we're used to. We're used to seeing him be like the Coy Moore, long pass, make something happen kind of person. A couple other things, and these are kind of on the positives. At one point, Auburn had 4 straight possessions where they had points scored. Now, it was field goals or touchdowns. And that was kind of end of half, third quarter, and even a little bit into the fourth quarter. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, that's what you need to get your offense going is consistency. And, we hadn't seen consistency on offense. We would put together one drive, and then we'd do a 3-and-out. And another 3-and-out. We'd punt it. And then we'd finally get maybe one more drive going or maybe one big play. And I felt like our offense did something. And that was kind of a little refreshing because we have not seen that for the most part this year. All right. Any other positives that you can think of, Jared, before we go on to some more topics?
I wish we had more. But no, not really. I mean, Anders had, was he 2 for 2?
Yeah.
I think
Anders.
he was.
Yep.
So that was good.
Yeah, and one was 42 yards. Like,
yeah.
So
not a gimme, yeah.
I am thankful we have Anders, even though he looked very iffy towards the beginning of this season. I mean, he has kind of more or less turned out a lot better. He's at an 80% completion so far. So, I mean, he's 8 for 10 if you don't count those, 3 that were called back or whatever this season.
Yeah, maybe it was just an off day. I don't know. I think we might have taken that and maybe we went a little too extreme.
Yeah.
So,
but that's okay. All right. So let's talk about a little bit of improvements that we saw on offense. So obviously run games. We had very explosive plays, which I feel like that's something I feel like Auburn has done in very few spurts every once in a while. That feels like the only way we seem like we can score. And we did it pretty decently. I mean, Tank Bigsby did it. We had, the pass to Coy Moore. I mean, we were out there. We were making those big plays. And that's the kind of stuff that'll help you win the game. So I want to see us make more of those. But even more so, explosive plays are all fun and all. But especially in the run game. Think about it. Like, if we didn't have those really big runs, and those are great, but if you have consistent running where we average 4, maybe 5 yards a carry, I would honestly take 4 or 5 yard carries over those super long runs, even though they are fun to watch. Maybe I'm discounting the huge plays, but I would rather see consistency.
No, I think I get where you're going with that. I mean, you kind of take the wheel of the defense if you continuously hit 4 or 5 yards a carry, right? One big play, they're like, okay, we'll regroup next time. But if they can't stop you from getting 5 yards a carry, you kind of take their wheel. You keep the other team off the field, which we kind of needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I get your point, with that. It was just so refreshing to see because it's been a while. That and it's sad that I'm not more mad about that game. I'm kind of almost like, oh, we do have an offense.
Yeah.
We should be really mad about that game, and I'm not happy, but I should be more upset. To lose to Ole Miss by 14, that's not the Auburn way. But I do think that the fact that we actually showed signs of a competent offense, people were kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm a little more relieved than I was.
Yeah. No, I came away from that game not feeling as bad than I was expecting. Because honestly, I was thinking we'd put up 10, 14 points, which seems to kind of be par for the course in previous games. And then hope that we can slow down Ole Miss's offense. And, we weren't able to do that. So another couple things that I noticed, and this is, I don't think Robbie did everything right, but I think Robbie, for how he's kind of come into this position where, really think about it. He was such an underdog, coming into the season. He was second string behind TJ, and you're kind of seeing him slowly mature and develop. And I think those are positives. Now, is he still fumbling the ball? Is he still throwing interceptions? Yes. And those are things you can't do. Especially the fumbles. At this point, he's breaking records on fumbling. He literally has the most fumbles of any player this season in college football. That's terrible. Absolutely. I just can't even fathom that right now. But if you look at, the way he, for example, bounced back after getting yanked for that one series where TJ came in, I was so impressed with how Robbie redeemed himself and said, I'm going to come back and I'm going to lead this team. And yeah, did he have that weird, interaction with Tank, on the sidelines? Yeah. Did we also see that with, players like Bo Nix? Yeah. That's a competitive, that's competitive in my mind. Yeah, it's not a great look, but you're showing that you're fighting and you want your team to keep their head in the game. So you're talking to Tank saying, hey, buddy, let's go. We can still prove something here. And I think they did. So, again, it gives me that little glimpse of hope that this offense can do something and not be completely incompetent.
I don't, people get upset, and people can get upset about what they want. That didn't bother me. I'm like, number one, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's being said.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I will take anger over apathy any day. Like,
Absolutely.
anger means you care.
Right. Like to me, if Robbie's just sitting on the sideline, which he does a lot, just by himself, there's a moment where you're like, okay, dude, like, I mean, I was just literally watching Ted Lasso, and one of the things he had, for one of his players was be like the happiest animal in the world. And guess what that animal is? A goldfish. Why? Because they have a 10-second memory. And I was like, that's the kind of coaching that I would, have to Robbie. It's, forget about it. Like, literally forget about it. We can talk about this after the game, but you got to forget and move on. And it's the same thing. You got to get the next play right. And if you don't do that, then that's a problem.
Right. Robbie slammed the phone down when he got the call that TJ was going in. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but I'm like, I don't want the dude to be okay being benched.
Absolutely. Like, I love that. And I would, like you said, I would much rather have that intensity than him just be like, okay, bye. Like, no, he's pissed off. He wanted that. He wants to lead this team. And he's, arguably doing a pretty decent job at it. He put up 34 points against Ole Miss. That's not something that, a lot of teams are going to be able to do. So anyway, I think a couple other things we need to talk about. Defense. The defense had their struggles this game. I mean, I'm still trying to, wrap my mind around how we allow almost 450 yards of rushing. That in 2022, if somebody had ever said that to me, I'd be like, what, did we just go back to like the, run it up the gut every time? Kind of, are we just running the ball every time? Like that feels like that kind of game, from 30, 40 years ago, it feels like. And now it's that was what Ole Miss did to us. And that doesn't seem right. Especially with how our defense has done decently well this season.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I hate to keep harping on the linebackers. I just think they're not. I mean, I think Owen had like 16 tackles, but I just don't think they're in the right spot. And when they do, they get blown up.
Yeah.
And, I mean, to be honest with you, Georgia, if Georgia would have kept passing, we'd probably keep that game close. They finally said, forget it, we're going to run. And then later on, they were able to pass. But LSU, they hurt their own selves by trying to pass too much. Penn State didn't have any trouble running on us. So, we haven't really stopped the run all year, is my point. And Ole Miss was one of the leading rushing teams in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I was worried about it. They kept doing, they were doing jet sweeps. We had nobody out there. We had like one dude out there, and they were getting blown up.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why we didn't change schematically. I don't know, man. I just, to be honest with you, anybody that can run the ball well, it's gonna have to be a shootout because Arkansas can run the ball well. It's not gonna be pretty. I mean, it's gonna be a shootout if we win.
Right, and that's honestly the thing that scares me because most teams, if you can run the ball well, that opens up everything, and that's just the way football is. And if we can't stop the run, it's just not gonna happen. I mean, the offense for Ole Miss had 7 yards per carry or close to it, and you're like,
that's all.
Yeah, doesn't it feel like it's more? and yeah, that's like, to me, that's like taking out, if you take out the quarterback, sacks and that kind of stuff, like that's crazy.
Well, doesn't it feel like Derek Hall's having to make tackles like linebackers should make? I feel like
absolutely.
I feel like he's all over the field. I'm like, why is Derek Hall even having to be where he's at?
Right.
Like, that's not utilizing his skill set. And I think we're having to do that to overcompensate because we know.
Yeah.
I just don't get it, man. I just do not get it. I mean, apparently the Asante from North Carolina, he must not be any good because he's not playing. I'd throw the true freshman in there. The guy that from, I think, Mobile, I can't think of his name. I mean, at this point, it can't be any worse. I mean.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you look at the stats and you're like, oh, Owen had 16 tackles. And he led the team. And you're like, I don't remember Owen making really any crucial plays
I don't either.
that he stuffed a guy in the backfield. And that's the kind of stuff.
The stats are the stats. Like, okay, he had 16. You're like, well, okay, was he doing his job? No, because they had 7 yards. They have 400. nobody was doing their job.
Right.
That is meant to stop the run when you give up 450 yards rushing.
Right. And it's the kind of the same thing. Like the over and over, we're seeing this. Like, what's going on there? And to me, I'm looking back at that and either thinking one of two things. Either Zacoby McClain was the best linebacker we've ever seen at Auburn, which I don't necessarily think that's true, but he was able to stop the run. Or the second option, this defense is just not working. Like, it's not filling the gaps. It's not doing what you're supposed to. And that's the part that kind of worries me, that this defense just, as good as the talent is, like, that feels like it's getting wasted. And that's, to me, honestly, like, if I keep coming back to, like, should we fire Harsin or not, which is, I feel like the whole, like, feels like everything's revolving around that. That's, to me, the most, concerning or most, critical argument is I feel like we're just wasting that much talent. Derek Hall doesn't seem like he's getting Derek Hall is freaking being a man, but it's like, where the heck is, the Papos been?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't, I think we got a glimpse of what life without Zacoby McClain was last year in the first half. We can't forget, Georgia State was not great.
Yeah,
they literally ran all over us in the first half. They didn't have. They didn't like out scheme us. They just ran all over us.
Yeah,
Zacoby was out for targeting. He comes in the second half. They don't get a point.
Right.
And I think that we probably at the beginning of this year should have been a little more concerned about that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, oh, cool, we got Papo back. He's pretty good. I think I undervalued how much Zacoby helped out that linebackers, like the linebackers, and linebackers. I mean, they're helping fill those gaps, and if they're not filling the gaps, or they're hitting a guy 3 yards downfield, I mean, to me that's not a good look.
No, and I feel like we're doing more arm tackling.
Well, you want to know a fun stat about tackling? Yeah. Okay, so defense this game, we had 23 missed tackles.
Yeah, okay. I didn't even know that stat, and I knew it because so before Kevin Steele came to Auburn, we had gone through a stretch of having some not great defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Not in Auburn way. We had gone in a little spell there. If we couldn't get good defenses, we could not tackle. We were doing arm tackling. We couldn't do any of that. Steele comes in and locks that down.
Right.
And I mean, we were a great tackling team, and that's gone. We're not a great tackling team, and really, that's all you got to do, man. I mean, you got to keep them from getting the extra yards.
Yeah.
You're not going to stop people from completing passes. You're not going to stop running plays from getting some yardage.
Right.
But you got to prevent the extra yards. You can't miss the tackles.
Well, and a great example of that was Ole Miss tried to run that reverse, and we had a guy that he was like 14, 15 yards back, behind the line of scrimmage. We had him, and he broke out of a tackle. And guess what? He almost, gets back to the line of scrimmage. And yeah, is it still a negative play? Sure. But if you are 2nd and 20 or 2nd and 12, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So to me, that, again, breaking tackles, if they're doing that to us, that's just fundamentals.
God, we don't do anything right, honestly. We don't do the fundamentals right. We don't do the explosiveness right. Schematically, I've not looked at any one of our games and been like, oh, we designed great plays for this game. I feel like we keep doing the same thing. I honestly just feel like this again. So I pray this isn't the case. I hope we figured something out. I really just feel like our players just made things happen.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, and I don't want to rely on that. Like, you shouldn't.
That's what we did against LSU.
That's kind of like, saying your intramural flag football team, just go out there and have some fun, instead of having a strategic way of playing. To me, that's like, why are we paying a coach that millions of dollars? And you're like, if we're just going out there and letting the players actually make the plays, that some play broke down and they start making a play, like that's not a way to win.
Well, so it worked in the first half against LSU, and then they figured it out. They shut it. They figured out a way to stop that. It didn't work at all. You're not going to work at all against Georgia. You're not just going to play backyard ball and win that ball game. Ole Miss backyard ball got us a lot of points. Can we find a way to utilize that and actually make it continue? It may look better up until Bama because I think the teams we're playing, are not as strong defensively. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It's the fundamental piece is just so hard to watch because you're talking about you're wanting to get 4 or 5 yards a run. I mean, that's what Ole Miss was getting. You knew we couldn't stop it. It's just like, we can't stop this. And I don't even know why they were passing.
No, if I was them, I would be like, we're legitimately just going to run. I don't care, Auburn, if you're going to put 8 guys in the box. I don't care. We're just going to run, and we're going to be successful.
Well, they sent the running back in motion on a play. Nobody went with him. Nobody.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I remember that.
Didn't even try. And then the other one is so Dart is not a mobile quarterback. And they had run him enough to where then they did a play action where it was like, okay, he faked like he was going to run it.
Yep.
And then the dude's wide open behind him.
Yeah.
I'm like, why can't we design that stuff? Because our quarterback is actually athletic.
Right.
Why are we not designing that type of play?
Yeah. Now, I do think Lane is a brilliant offensive mind. So I think there is a piece to that. But, I mean, that's one of the reasons I think we hired Harsin was we were like, oh, he's an offensive-minded coach. And I think we showed some improvement, like I said, but that's not enough. You're looking at, I mean, for me, you're looking at the overall picture. Is our offense competent? I think since Bo Nix, our offense has been nothing comparatively. The only reason we've stayed in games is because of our defense.
Yeah. And the defense is starting to show that may not be the case. So we're going to have to offense is going to have to pick up the slack.
Right. And there were so I do want to point out a couple pretty big plays, not to completely bash on this defense. I mean, a couple things that happened. Puckett got, he got that terrible pass interference call. Oh, we could go on and on about that. Even the commentator said that was bad, but he did get his first sack. So, there's some good things that did happen. Keontae
Scott had a pick.
Yeah, he had an interception, and that gave us great field position at the 35-yard line. So, Auburn capitalized off that. And that was his first interception as an Auburn Tiger. So, I mean, he has, for him, I didn't know he was going to be so good at his position, but it's also showing, not only is he good for the most part at, special teams where he's punt returning, where he can make guys miss, he's also making plays and pretty much batting balls down, making interceptions. I mean, that's kind of fun stuff. And again, Auburn's defensive backs have been stellar. And guess who's coaching them right now? Guess what? Zach
Etheridge.
Isn't that awesome? I don't know. I don't know what to make of that.
Yep.
Only a couple more things and we'll wrap things up. Like we mentioned, Anders Carlson, 2 for 2. He also made 4 of his extra points. So definite improvement there. And then we had Oscar Chapman. He had 3 punts, averaged 49 yards that game. So, man, he is working towards that Heisman or whatever.
We didn't get him enough. He didn't get enough play time. He didn't get enough camber time on Saturday. We need to punt more.
Only three punts. I know. But since we're kind of on the special teams topic, I feel like I don't think we've talked about it, is the onside kick that Ole Miss ran. And to me, I played plenty of special teams in high school, and I don't know why that guy was so far off the ball. I think it was like Camden Brown or something, and it's not his fault necessarily that he's that far back. That's just coaches telling you where to stand. And we had nobody that was close to the 10-yard line. That to me is a why? Do you not even consider that a possibility? I don't know.
Situational football, and you also got to know who you're coaching against.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin he does throw the rules out, right? Like, you're supposed to punt, he's not going to punt. Kick
right.
it deep, it is not a shock that Lane Kiffin would kick an onside.
Yeah. Honestly,
And-
when that happened, I was thinking, wow, is Tuberville coaching right now? Like,
Yeah. Like Lane Kiffin does not care. If he is going to attack, and when you have started scoring a lot and they cannot stop you either, and they just went down and scored, I feel like it should be on your coach's mind that this guy may do an onside.
Yep.
You don't put your hands team out there, but just have everybody up on the line and let
Right.
your team know, hey, watch out.
Yep. I think that's all you'd have to do, because in most scenarios like that, first off, there has to be a perfectly kicked onside kick, which I think it was. I mean, it looked like it was nearly perfect. And you got that, but you also have to catch the opposing special teams completely off guard. And they did. That's
if we're up on the line, they don't do that. I guarantee
Right.
you that was probably a look at me.
Yep.
They looked over at the coach, and the coach is like, "Yeah, go for it." Like,
Get
there's
it.
they're not up there. I mean,
Right.
And if we'd have been up there, they'd have probably been like, "No, don't do it. Call it off."
Right. So again, kind of one of those out coached, and again a theme.
It is every game, my man. Every game.
All right. So we're not going to be doing a bye week preview because it's a bye week, but I am definitely looking forward to these guys getting a little bit of break. As of now, we're recording about 9:00 Eastern time on Sunday. Harson's still our coach, so I'm going to assume he's going to be our coach at least through this week. Let's also kind of talk about other things that happened in the SEC, because that's kind of fun. There were some, that Tennessee-Bama game lived up to the hype that everybody, I feel like, TV commentators, fans alike, were kind of going to say, this is going to be a good one. Jared, were you able to watch this game?
Yes, I did watch that game, and it was a great game.
Yeah. So many times where I was like, oh, wow, Tennessee is about to just, run away with it. And, Bama, doing Bama things. They're going to come back. But that game was so fun. I loved, first off, that Hyatt guy from Tennessee had 5 touchdown passes with only 6 receptions total in a game. That is efficient.
Yeah, I saw Travis Kelce for Kansas City last week I think he had 5 catches, 4 touchdowns, and I thought that was crazy. But yeah, this guy topped that.
That is just insane to allow that to happen. I feel like I'd seen that only a couple times ever, where you just, when that ball's in his hands and he catches it, he's gone. A couple other funny things, Bama kickers, into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Bama had a chance to win, or at least get the go-ahead points, and Bama kickers are going to do what they always do. So
it's a tradition.
It is a tradition. And then, I don't know about you, Jared, but I've seen some Bama fans complaining about all the penalties. And how good does it feel to be on the, for Bama to be getting that? Like, to me, that's just like, I love this.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that, I'm sure the refs had it out for Bama.
Yeah,
and,
it seemed like it.
Yeah, it's just like Bama fans will watch a CBS broadcast and think that Gary Danielson doesn't like them, and I'm like, are you serious? Like he finds ways to talk about y'all during games you're not even playing in.
Right. Yeah. So
yeah.
There were plenty, back to the penalties. Like I think there were plenty of times where it was just Bama doing stupid things, and like if it's an offsides, like there's no, like, that's an offsides. Like there's no questioning that. And sure, like, does it look like it was bad? Sure, but Bama did it to themselves, and yet
this isn't the only game. Like I think Bama had a lot of penalties in the Texas game. So at some point you're like, okay, y'all are just committing penalties,
right?
And these are penalties that they probably have not called on y'all in the past. I still can't believe they went like 10 games 5 years ago without a holding call. Which is impossible. Wow. Because there's holding on every play.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I won't listen to that from them.
At the end of the game, if you watch, they rushed the field and they took down the field goal post, and they took the field goal post and they took it all the way out to the river, and they put it in the river, and I was like, what the heck is this? And apparently it's some sort of like weird tradition that they do that when they rush the field. I'm like, how stupid is that? But whatever.
College football in general is pretty stupid, especially if you listen to like the chants that teams have, and yeah, it's if you were an alien put on Earth and sent to an SEC game, you'd be like, take me back, please.
I don't understand. These humans are weird.
What is this? Can I go back? Let me go back to my other planet, please.
It is so true. Like even just the idea, like, and again, I love bands, but it's always like bands will just play like random songs, and you're just like, what is this? Like, I love it. Like, it's definitely college football, but like, why are you playing a Johnny Cash song or whatever? And I'm like, what?
I mean, the whole concept of people, grown men, allowing college sports to ruin their life.
Oh my gosh.
Me included, is a little silly if you're thinking about it.
It is, right? We have no control over it, but hey, we're fans and we're going to get behind our team, and for us, alma mater. So that's just the way it is. All right, Jared, any other final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, probably silly, but I think the Ole Miss game gave a little hope. I think if we have the same offensive output against Arkansas, being at home, I think we can win.
Yeah, no, I think the way Arkansas is right now, I think we have a legit shot, and I would even argue, Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think A&M too. I think up until that point, I mean, my goodness, in SEC games, we had scored 17 was the most.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to go on the road and score 34, and we scored 7 against Georgia in the second half. So I know that's silly, but hey, that's 2 games in a row. We've done some scoring in the second half, so maybe they have figured it a little bit out there. So I'm going to hold on to that hope, and let's let the boys rest over the bye week, and let's go get after it in 2 weeks.
Yep, absolutely. Jared, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger, and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.